Welcome to the exclusive club that Dads Don't Want to Belong To podcast, hosted by Trevor Dwyer Lynch. Trevor speaks with dads about the loss of their son or daughter and asks how they cope, if indeed they cope at all. This podcast is proudly supported by the Manx Spirit charity. Thank you for listening.
Hi everyone, hope everyone's well. Welcome to the podcast again. Today I'm feeling upbeat actually. Today is a good day. Just been for a very long walk on the Ainsdale beach. My little bit of tranquility. So cathartic for me to walk down that beach. I don't know if anybody's been, but the sea air and the walk in the sand, grounding, earthing, it just does raise my vibrations immensely. Secondly, I'm in the process of having a series of poems I've wrote published. That's a great thing. And now I'm just off to do an audition for an independent film. So fingers crossed. And obviously, today's guest is someone very, very special. I think once he introduces himself, and you'll saw straight away exactly who he is and what he's about and how he copes with the transition of his beautiful daughter. So yes, I'll see you on the other side. Please leave a review. Tell us what you think. Welcome to our listeners, and thank you for subscribing and joining into the exclusive club that dads don't want to belong to. It gives me great pleasure this week and a massive honour for someone that I've actually, well, probably he does know, but doesn't know, and his mates have been inspirational to not only myself and how he deals with his situation, but obviously for thousands of others also. His name is someone similar, who familiar, should say, who you will recognise when he starts talking and talks about exactly what he does. And I'm sure you'll know that, you know, not only nationally are they well known, this person and his two mates, but also through Europe and I'm sure the world, having exposure on every platform that you could think of, national TV, Sky TV, Europe and everything. So if you'd like to, sir, I would be grateful if you would give us the honour and the pleasure of introducing yourself. And please tell us that about the thing that you've started, something very, very special and unique in the memory of your daughter. And that tells us a little bit about your project.
Okay, well, you're too kind for a start, Trevor. You built me up a bit there, but no. Thank you for asking me on. I think it's a hugely important thing you do. Because I'll tell you about myself then. My name's Mike Palmer. I'm 1/3 of Three Dads Walking. We are, myself along with Andy and Tim, we are three fathers bereaved by suicide. Our similarity is we've all lost daughters. And through our grief and through circumstance, really, we've come together as campaigners to prevent young suicide. The grief through losing my daughter Beth. She was only 17. She had the world at her feet. She was a talented singer, dancer. She belonged on stage, life and soul of the party, loved by everyone. She was a loved daughter. She was a loved niece, a loved cousin, loved sister. You know, she was just the last person in the world you'd ever think would take her own life. I can go more into Beth's story, but basically she was there one moment and gone the next. And it was only in 2020, March 2020, the beginning of lockdown. And we do think lockdown basically caused the bucket to overflow. But this, after, we will talk about grief, I'm sure, more, Trevor, on this, so, but basically the grief of losing Beth nearly killed me, pure and simple. I was reduced from I suppose, a stereotypical firefighter who dealt with life and death many times, never taken it lightly, always cared, but always been able to process it. But then losing Beth, I couldn't deal with anything. The whole world had changed colour. But through this grief, bizarrely, say, through circumstances, I met Andy and Tim. And there's this peer thing as well that you're doing so well here. We understood each other in the same place. Yeah. We met by circumstance, and we've managed to galvanize ourselves into a point for carrying on. And that is trying to prevent what we are going through, trying to prevent other families going through losing their most precious things in their life, that are the children, to suicide. So, we've walked 3 times now over 1,400 miles. Not bad for 3 old guys who aren't the fittest. But it's not just, we realise our challenges aren't, when you look at someone like Kevin Sinfield, absolutely out this world, his athleticism and everything, and he's a cracking guy as well. We've such respect for him, and he supported us along the way as well. But the point is that we know we're not athletes, but we push ourselves to over 20 miles a day, and we talk. We meet people and talk, affected by suicide. People who've tried to take their own lives, and the stories and everything it's changed our life around. Life's still not easy. Maybe I'm skipping over things a bit and we can go into a bit, Trevor, but life's not always good now, but I have reason to get out of bed now and, and carry on. I've had to refocus, come out of the dark pit that's still there, but I try not to fall into it. But, I focus on what I do with the 3 dads and also my family. They're the most important things in my life.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, so obviously first came to my attention, you were hearted on Granada News. Do you know what I mean? And seeing it, and I was like, ooh, wow. And also, again, having my cousin, who again, took his own life, ended his life by suicide, and 2 really close friends. So it's always been on the periphery of me, an acknowledgement, obviously, as an interest and stuff like that. But just seeing how you and the 2 other lads came together and made people look up and understand, probably for want of a better word, exactly how these things, how it is that word suicide, what it means and what it entails to different people. I mean, for example, just for the listeners and subscribers, I first spoke to Mike about two or 3 weeks ago, and obviously talking about asking him to come onto our podcast. And I used a certain phrase which I didn't know. And one thing we try and do on this podcast, Mike, is that we try and, even one instance, one sentence, is educate. Do you know what people about grief or about death or whatever? And you educated me on that day. Now, I'd just like to say, could you reiterate a little bit of our conversation and how it came about and what you said?
I certainly will. The language is very important when you talk about suicide. We're trying to smash the stigma here. The stigma has always been, forever, that it's an act against God. You will be sent to, hell, fire and brimstone. But also because of that as well, suicide, it was against the law until I think it was 1961. Forgive me if I've got my dates slightly wrong, but 1961. So if you were suicidal, if you tried to take your own life, you would be basically put in prison. So therefore, you were never able to be honest and ask for help and tell people how you felt, because you would be categorized as, a bad person who needs punishing rather than a person who needed help. So traditionally, the word that always goes with suicide is committed.
Yeah.
That we need to lose that word.
Yeah.
It is no longer against the law. So, I talked to my father-in-law about this. He was a policeman, sort of, in the 1950s.
Yeah.
They put people away for it, but they were unable to get the help. So we lose the word committed, so we use the phraseology, took their life by suicide or took their own life.
Yeah.
And, by doing that, it enables people to talk more freely about it. It takes that away. As for religion as well, all religions, instead of preaching, fire and brimstone from the pulpit, we need to preach the message. That is the message of, we can help, we are here to look after you. So all that enables people to get the help. So you obviously implore everyone now, and it is something that I do realise. And when I do correct people, I do it. I would have used that phraseology before I lost Beth just over 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But you realise, and especially maybe older people, it just comes off the tongue. Committed suicide. But I implore people, try and lose that. It's all part of smashing the stigma and getting people the help they need.
I think actually really think it's great, because I've talked about subsequently since with two of my mates who were coppers, and they told me I never knew, and they said, "Yeah, he's right. Yeah. It was labelled as a crime, Trev, and when it come from the Bible or whatever it came from, and it stayed there, became law." And I went, he went, "Seriously?" They both the same thing, reiterate exactly what you said. Yeah, it was a crime, mate. And if they tried, like you say, and for want of a bloody better word, didn't succeed, they would be getting charged. Yeah. I was like, that is just, but it just shows you, doesn't it? But everyone I spoke to, I've mentioned this briefly, and everyone's gone, great, that's great. I think it's so useful. I think it's really important, because like I said, I was like, oh, because we all want to learn every day. And now I use that. I involved in a little bit of a man's wellness group, and with someone the other day, and subsequently since, one of the women there, she's been on a course of, is it PAPYRUS?
Yeah, PAPYRUS, yeah.
PAPYRUS, and now there's quite a few of them going on it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think it's vitally important, man. Like saying, to open that up and to let people feel free to express how they feel and talk about how they feel, and not this, like say, this stigma thinking, oh, if I say this person's going to think, oh, my son or my daughter did something wrong.
Do you know what? It's words. We all know words are really powerful, but it certainly stimulated the conversation, because Trev phoned me, not directly after the conversation with you. He said, "I've just spoke to Mike," and obviously he went through it, and we started talking about it, and it instigated that conversation. I've just filmed, just completed filming on a short film called Gone Fishing, which is men's mental health, which I've wrote and produced. And this is men of a certain age, which we all know are just pretty much rubbish at talking about the mental health. And this is two guys in a fishing trip for the first time since their close friend took their own life. Okay, so now this is when Trev spoke to me. It was just before filming, and after the conversation, I'm like, because you write the script and you don't forget about it, but you don't really look at it because you're doing other stuff. And you say, "What have I?" And I'd not said that, but yeah, it kind of, we talked for a good 10, 15 minutes, and it was a conversation I didn't expect to have. I must admit, on a late on a whenever it was, but everything's and he's right, everything's a learning moment, but it makes sense. That's the thing. It's not no, you've got to do it. It makes sense to use that phraseology, because it's when I say less hurtful to the parents, well, whatever it takes. If it means that one parent is not going to feel that hurt because of you using that terminology, then absolutely that's the right thing to do.
It's all part of the drive for awareness.
Mm.
You know, it's about. I'm still approached by parents now who still tell me their children committed suicide. You know, they tend to be older, and I will gently, sort of correct them, bring them round. But it is part of the whole awareness thing. It's about being able to talk about human. This is why we want to go into schools, move right upstream. Let people be a little freer with what they, talking about their emotions, how they feel, but understanding why they feel how they do.
Yeah.
But realizing as well they can reach out. But this goes at every walk of life. What we teach our kids as well. They'll become the adults and parents one day. That's why we need to go there. But at this stage here, even men of our age need to talk because, often stereotypically men of our age can't talk about their emotions. I think myself, Andy and Tim are very different because you can't shut us up when we start. But I truly believe as well that has helped us carry on after losing our girls.
Yeah.
We've met many people as we've walked as well that you're talking mums and dads who have not talked about their feelings after losing their precious child, even over decades. And, we're talking about dads here because of what you do in the podcast and whatever, but it is so important to talk, and
Absolutely.
sometimes just getting over the line and saying a few words, then you're off. Nothing will ever go away. There's no magic wand, but it's a huge part. And not having the stigma there and feeling I can talk without being judged, hugely important.
You listen, I'm a massive believer in. I've got a mental health charity as well, and I don't care how, where, when, why people talk about the mental health, as long as they do, as long as they find an opportunity. And it might be in the pub when they've had a few sherbets, and that, technically not the best way, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as long as they find some place, some way of starting that conversation, and it doesn't make things go away, but as a first step, it's absolutely essential, isn't it? So whatever it takes, mate, whatever it takes.
I mean, it's interesting what you say about pubs there. No, alcohol and mental health issues, sometimes, they don't help each other, but, pubs as well are areas of, especially community, being social and being able to actually leave your house and go somewhere and have that conversation. Very expensive, but in buying bottles are cheaper but if you're taking those cheap bottles home, sat in front of the telly, drinking by yourself, that's not healthy. So, I've just gone off a bit here, but
I agree, mate. Pubs
are a vital part of the community.
They're an essential part of the community, or they used to be. And I could talk about that for a long time. And I stopped boozing about 3.5 years ago because it's not conducive towards my mental health. No, absolutely not.
Yeah. I think, like you say, I mean, that is the biggest thing, the common denominator they want to push. Reference this podcast, Mike, is about us men talking. And again, part of my grieving process is to write poetry. Found it quite difficult. Before, obviously, Jordan transitioned, I was, I am chatty. People knew me as chatty and vociferous, you know what I mean? And blah, blah, blah. But like you say, part of you does die also with your child. So I found it, I used to write poetry before, which was about general stuff. And then thought I would never pick up the pen again. And then just started writing about my experience, my grief, how people make me feel, how I felt about his death, etc., etc. Do you know what I mean? But the reason why we started the podcast, like you say, although you mentioned the mums, and I don't know about your wife, but I just have this thing, people that I spoke to, that researchers, the couples, it was only really the mums that spoke to each other. I was pretty jealous of women because they gravitate towards each other. You know, women talk to them about the curtains, do you know what I mean? And about their hair's not right. Then they go into deeper subjects, you know what I mean? Might be the marriage, might be financial, might be the sex life, might be the health. Whereas men, like you say, referring back to the pub again, might just go in the pub. How you doing, mate? Yeah, I'm all right. Have a pint. That's it. So for us to get out and talk, you know what I mean, wherever we are, that was important for us. And that was why I wanted to get the message over to in the podcast that we want dads to talk to each other, you know. I think we're from a generation, aren't we, where it was perceived as we don't do it, no matter what, you know, and especially when it came to grief, you know, whether it be your loss of your mum, your dad, your granny, your auntie, your sister, your brother, get on with it, lad, you're all right, you'll be okay. Time's a great healer. Do you know what I mean? When we know it is not. You know,
it's not.
I have, I said to Paul the other day, I think probably just, it's come up to 2 years now since Jordan transition, and I've not really been angry, but the last couple of weeks or so, I've noticed that myself there's a change, the self-awareness about a bit of anger. And again, it's just people's language, you know, what they're saying. If one of the things that really pisses me off is that, listen, no matter what, mate, don't worry, time's a great healer. You know what I mean? And I'm like,
yeah.
You know, and kiss myself. Anyway, listen, Merry Christmas. And I know they don't mean it maliciously. I know they don't.
No, but people don't, and you must forgive them.
Yeah,
because
I do.
you know that they are trying to help. There's nothing malicious in what they say.
No,
you know. But going back a bit, you know, sort of when I lost Beth.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I'd not been a writer, but I started writing. Just about every day, a diary about how I felt, and some of it's not all of it is in our book, Three Dads Walking 300 Miles of Hope.
Yeah.
And we hope that talks about our grief as well as the walk and people we've met. But, you know, sort of going back to losing a child from the point of view as a father, and suicide, Beth was suicide, so it has the unique angle of suicide. I'm not saying any way to lose a child is any worse or any of that, but suicide has its own unique angle.
Yes.
And it plunges you into the most lonely place you could ever imagine. Yeah, I couldn't even focus on my family. It was as if I couldn't see them because they were out of focus. I couldn't help them. I couldn't anything. But it was finding that way out of all that.
Yeah.
You know, and I had to start writing and putting that down on paper and reading it back. It's harrowing, absolutely harrowing. Yeah. But, you know, you're talking about anger as well. You know, I've listed there's either 5 or 7 stages of grief, you know, and they start with shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, testing, loneliness, acceptance. I've just whizzed through them there.
Yeah.
But the truth is, they all happen.
Yes.
You know, and anger is something, you know, you may feel anger in a different way to me. I feel anger towards Beth for doing what she did. And I feel no guilt in that either. Because, you know, if she's looking down, that's another subject, isn't it? But if she's looking down, she understands why I'm angry at her. And basically, if I see her on the other side, the first thing we'll do is kick her up the arse. There's absolutely no, you know, that'll happen. You know, but there's being angry as well at it being you, your family. You have had that loss, and you feel as though you did not deserve that to happen. Yeah. You know, and these are natural things to feel. Absolutely. And this, you know, the time thing you talk about, you know, time's a great healer. No, it doesn't go away. You will always have a huge hole within
Yeah.
you. You will never be complete again. You are a totally different person. But as time goes on, you become a little more insulated, I think.
Right.
I'm sat here talking to you. I don't know all your circumstance, Paul, but Trevor, you're another bereaved father,
Yeah.
but we're laughing
Yeah.
as well, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was a stage where I never thought I'd laugh again.
Correct. And that guilt facet of grief, you know what I mean? The guilt is like, oh, when you do laugh, should I be laughing? Should I be doing that? In my, where I work, in my industry, you know what I mean, as an actor and stand-up comedian, it's like, no, can't do that again. Can't stand in front of people again. Can't do this, can't do that. Do you know what I mean? But like you say, I think, I can't speak for myself, but I think I wear a mask. I think people like us, we wear a mask. We wear a mask. Do you know what I mean? And people say to me, it's like, they go, how are you? Are you okay? And I go, I don't know about you. I'm at the stages where I don't really, unless like us, now we can talk about losing a child, but someone who hasn't or has got children, sometimes I think I feel myself a bit awkward that I'm draining them. Do you know what I mean? So I'll say to them, when they say, are you okay? I'll say, right, to cut it in short, I'll answer you and it'll stop you. I walk in fog, and then every now and again the sun breaks through for 5 minutes, and then the fog descends again.
Yeah. That's a good point. That you feel as though you are burdening people.
Yeah.
When they ask you how you are, and you think, right, I'll give an honest answer, and you feel as though 10 minutes later, that poor person is almost thinking, why did I ask him that? Why did I ask them that?
Yeah.
My way is not the right way, but the way I've done things now is I forgive myself for the way I feel sometimes.
Yeah.
I've had to refocus. I've refocused on my family. I've refocused on the 3 dads. Now I have, quite severe downs at times.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll fall into the bottle a bit.
Yeah.
And it's not something I'm particularly worried about. I don't drink every day, anything like that.
No.
But I have times. It's like falling off the wagon and getting back up again.
Yeah. Sure.
I have a philosophy now that I forgive myself for the way I feel. Because I know why I feel that way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because I've lost my little girl.
Correct.
I lost that little girl who used to ride on my shoulders, hold my hand, tell me every day, Daddy, I love you, could get away with anything, and it's so painful. But also I think as well, I have philosophy as well of thinking I'll die one day. That's for certain. And I'd rather put up a fight, so I don't feel any guilt now about laughing if I have to.
Sure.
I as you say, it's like military defenses, isn't it? It's like you have walls here for different kinds of attack, if you like, bunkers, all kinds of things, so the enemy can't get through. And sometimes some of them fall, and sometimes they do get through. Then you've got to fight them back again.
Yeah.
And life's not good. It's not how I thought it to go. It doesn't go in that direction. But I have all these little philosophies, and they're not always right. If this happens, I fall off the wagon, or I get teary, or I have a day where basically I can't move.
Yeah.
I try and reset the day afterwards.
Yeah.
Often I find I can reset, but then it happens again. But that's the world I live in.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do want to go down with the fight. But sharing a bit with someone, there's no harm. But I do think sometimes you don't want to overburden them.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm not I'm not in your situation, or Trevor's situation. I started this with Trevor. Supported Trevor on this purely because I love Trev, and
I can see why.
Yeah, he's a lovable guy. You only see the best of him. and that was the reason. And I've said this loads of time, and I've said it to a lot of people. It's from my point of view. I'm just being really, really honest. It's a horrible thing to do in many ways, because I always feel like I'm on the outside looking in, but I don't want to be in the inside looking out. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah, I do.
It's also been so more so than I thought it ever would be. It takes a lot to inspire me. I'm a 54-year-old, been around a bit, but I've been genuinely inspired by a lot of people we spoke to, including yourself, and what you've done. Because I do think it's genuinely changes people's lives. And as much as you'll meet people who'll say you've changed my life, there'll be hundreds, if not thousands, of people you'll never, ever, ever meet where you've had a positive impact. And that might be the day where you're feeling your absolute worst.
Yeah. I mean, what you're doing with the podcast, the peer support is hugely important. You're part of that, Paul, by doing what you're doing, producing it and whatever, and it is hugely important, because as I said before, the desolation and the isolation of losing a child, but to know you're not alone and be able to talk, it's huge, mate. It's huge.
Yeah.
You've talked about, obviously, the important groundbreaking project that you do, you know what I mean? But is that the only way, Mike, you actually do cope with the loss? Or indeed, if you don't cope? Because again, that is another thing we say on the podcast. It's like, we talk to dads who cope, or indeed, do they cope?
Well, no. I mean, for me, it's, as I said, my family comes first. I've had to, even though they don't always listen to me, they always seem to be going different directions. I've had to think, what's their life going to be without me? Yeah. And I've had to put financially everything. I think I've put everything in place. I worked really, really hard to do that as well.
Yeah.
But with the three dads, no, it's given me you call it what you want, a mission, a crusade. I don't know. But me, Andy, and Tim, we're totally different people. We've somehow bizarrely come together. Remember, we didn't know each other before. And we now, we're in each other's pockets all the time. But they're great guys. Yeah. Well, I have to say that because you take no, but we absolutely believe in what we do.
Yeah.
So even if it's for Beth's name, even if for Andy and Tim's daughters, Sophie and Emily, it's worth it. And we'll never know what we achieve, lives saved, and we don't need to. Don't need to at all. And we've walked 3 times. We campaign with government. We've won all kinds of awards, and they're massively important because it gives us, a higher platform to stand on. But I believe in what I do.
Of course.
And as for coping and not coping, no, sometimes I don't cope.
Yeah.
No, as you say, it's the old saying of, sometimes the waves of grief around your ankles, sometimes they're over your head. Yeah, it's true, isn't it? It's true. And it hits you the most, you don't always expect it. It just hits you.
Yeah.
I have a thing where I don't cope. I can literally, double-edged thing, living in Anglesey now, beautiful place, Chemist Bay, but sometimes if I go for a walk and I see a guy walking a little blonde girl on his shoulders or something, a little blonde girl or sister playing on the beach, it can bring me just about to my knees.
Yeah.
But I forgive myself for that.
Again, I've got to thank you for that, because, like you say, what we try and hope in here is that we know lots of people listen, and it's not a podcast where we can advertise. Really, it's such a raw subject, but it's always done by recommendation, like Coiney. Mutual mates. To me, I'm like, wow, do you know them really? Blah blah blah, which obviously come to this meeting. So it's obviously via people who, when we put the first lot out, and then it's recommended. Do you know what I mean? And what we want to try and achieve, again, even if they don't come and speak to us, but they listen.
Yeah.
Listen to you, what you've said, and they don't feel any any way. They don't feel embarrassed. They don't feel, they're not, in inverted chords, manly or whatever, because they're letting emotions go. Like previous podcast, I broke down, the interviewers have broke down, and it's like, let's leave it. Just leave it. Because we want men to know this is what they are about. It's like, who's grieving? The griever.
Yeah.
Like you say, you've got your wife to think about, you've got your other children to think about, blah, 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 blah. And it's not, it might seem precocious and selfish, but who's thinking about us? What do we do? Who says, well, let me sit down and talk to you and blah, blah, blah. So you saying that, for me, that's helping, again, like Paul says, thousands of people out there, because they'll be listening to it and go, yeah, that's me. That's me. And we just want it to resonate,
Yeah. It's important that I've got reason to carry on.
Yeah.
And as I say, it isn't easy, but I've got those reasons, and they are worth carrying on for as well. We don't know what's around the corner, sadly, for any of us.
No.
So yeah, I mean, in many ways it's quite bizarre that it's quite amazing that I'm actually still here.
Yeah.
The way I was, after Beth, because I was suicidal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I attempted to take my own life, and I was suicidal. Yeah, I've been open with that in the past, but people to understand.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, I hope this helps people.
Yeah.
Hearing us talk and about the grief, but we are still here, and somehow we're moving forward.
Yeah.
And and people around you as well have still got you. The people who love you have still got you, because they are here. I presume some people do love you anyway, Trevor.
Well, my dog.
You will. Well, funny enough, yeah.
Mate, I was going to say, I'm a massive, massive believer in trying to find hope in any situation, and listen, your situation and Trevor's situation is I think every parent's worst nightmare, without a shadow of a doubt. And I always imagine it as, the tunnel may be longer, but somewhere at the end of that tunnel there's a bit of light, and we've got to try and find it, because that's the bit that just keeps us moving forward.
Yeah. It does, and it's having that ability to realize that you may laugh again one day and say, there is, I feel guilty about doing it.
Yeah.
But it just happened. But I found that with Andy and Tim when I was walking as well.
Yeah.
Even on the first walk, that was only about 14 months after I lost Beth, I was in the depths of grief. I don't know how. I've always enjoyed a challenge. I just did triathlon for years, Ironman triathlon. I rode the Atlantic. I've always enjoyed a challenge, physical challenge, and I wasn't in the state to particularly do anything but walk, but I enjoyed the challenge. But then we started to talk to each other, and three dads in grief started to laugh, generally at each other. We're all very different. But it was a hugely, and I won't say healing, because you don't particularly heal, but it all helped. It was all
humanity, mate. It's humanity.
He stood in the middle of a field. We would, if you see pictures of us, we look ridiculous with our flags on. We look like something out of the Battle of Waterloo. All the shapes and sizes. The rain's pissing down. We stood in the middle of a muddy field surrounded by cows, and we're laughing.
Yeah. But I find that amazing, that, again, going through what we do go through, continually, this grief, losing a child, is that from somewhere, and I don't know what it is. And I actually thinking now, the way that I am, I think it's, people say to me, what drives you to do this podcast? And I used to think, I don't know, I don't really know. But I do think it's my lad. I do actually think it's my son who's driving me to do this thing. And, explaining things. I mean, my circumstances are a bit different. Me and my son wasn't speaking when he transitioned, you know what I mean? And, through divorce and other shit that went on. And, the icing on the cake was pathetic. It was about football. more serious things we could have fallen out with and not spoken to for years, but it was about bloody football, you know what I mean? But I have this thing now, and it's like, if I get upset talking about him, my metaphor is that he's here, he's connecting with me. Do you know what I mean? He's touching me, going, it's all right, Dad, it's all right. But my mate said to me today, I went to a dude the other day and we're talking about Jordan, and he started to get upset, and I wasn't. And he went, "Hey, am I all right? I'm sorry to get upset." I said, "No, it's all right." And I explained to him. So he went, "Well, when you mention him sometimes then and you don't get upset, well, where do you think he is?" I said, "Well, he could be with his son, or he might be with his mum, or he might be with his sister." Do you know what I mean? I said, but that tsunami, like you said, that tsunami wave just goes from nowhere, doesn't it?
Yeah. People are often driven by grief, and I find this a lot in the world of suicide.
Right.
People set up their own foundations, charities, and start doing the most incredible work.
Yeah.
You know, they change as people. But you're right, you know, it's because of their loved one pushing them on, I think. You know, I mean, Beth would be laughing her head off at me doing this.
Yeah.
No, but I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't
for her.
Her. You know, and it's you know, it's quite incredible. But you know, but credit to you, mate. Honestly, you know,
Mike. And it's a tough question, this, but do you think Beth would be proud of what you're doing?
I think she would. It's a difficult one, but she'll know how angry I am. But as I say, I feel no guilt about that.
No.
You know, but Beth, I think, could be the first one. She was always very protective over her friends. She never followed the crowd, Beth. Did her own thing. She was very strong-minded. She had her own friends that weren't necessarily from the in-groups, if you like.
Yeah.
And this is in college as well. She used to do the end of year like show they did, because they were all singers, performers, and obviously there were different levels, but she got everyone in. She organised it all, you know. But so she'd be the first one, I think, to say, you know, Dad, don't let other kids go down, you know, the road I went down. You know, and believe me, I know it's not as easy as that. It's very complicated. There's many different roads to suicide. Sometimes it's long-term mental health. You know, sometimes it's trauma. Sometimes it's an impulsive action by a young person. You know, there's many different roads. You know, but the more she'll know that the more you do, Dad, you know, it might stop another family. It sounds like a noble cause, but it's true. You know, the more work we do, I do believe the less families will have to go through this in this hugely complicated world as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm sure you've got hundreds of great memories of Beth. So here's a difficult one for you. Can you pull out 2 great memories that upon them, it just brings an instant smile to your face? I mean, I'm going to probably be a bit cheeky and say, I think one might be her song. Now, for many, which you're going to explain about that song, people don't know. I didn't know, and I was like, wow. And I'm listening to this song on Spotify, and I'm like, what the? I remember that, but not, obviously, identifying, associating, you know. So, 2 great memories, if you can, Mike, out of the millions.
Beth was, I say, she was a character. She was very cheeky. She could sing. She was an amazing dancer as well. Her mum used to be a professional show dancer, basically. So she still had that. Her singing voice, she didn't get off me, you know. But you know, when she was little, she was a very affectionate little girl. She always wanted to hold hands. She always wanted to sit on shoulders and stuff. But you know, but later in life, I mean, the memories that I'll pick 2, and there's so many.
Yeah, I bet.
There's so many. But I used to take her to Thai boxing lessons with a sister, because basically as a father, you want to equip your kids to look after themselves.
Yeah.
And she never really went, but she was actually had an amazing sort of balance, reaction, and knew what she wanted. Knew what she knew what she was doing. Never wanted to fight and whatever. I made her go, but I always remember once sort of it's just outside the ring. She was sparring with a lad. I believe he went on to become some sort of champion. Don't hold me to it as well.
Right.
But he was giving her a bit of a rough time when they were sparring, and she just turned around at the end and she kicked him so hard that he put him basically through the door into the next room. It's one of those you sort of you shouldn't go, yes, but it was, that's my girl. No, but her singing as well. She when she first started to go to college in Manchester, she did a show and we went to see her, and she sang Queen's, Someone to Love.
Yeah.
And my mouth just fell open.
Yeah.
Where she got that incredible voice from.
Yeah.
I'll never know. But when she did go on stage, she just lit it up. We've got friends who run the Seven Brothers bars in Manchester.
Yeah.
They had an open mic night, and she was only 16 at the time. She wasn't drinking, but she was allowed in the bar to sing.
Yeah.
But she just got up in the bar and sang, sort of Amy Winehouse and stuff like that. She just, how she walked on stage and just did it with such presence, I'll never know. But Pixel Screens is something else. But she was signed on a record label, but lockdown stopped her recording more. And that was basically the first song. She recorded that and a bit of another one. She wrote Pixel Screens. It's on Spotify. It's also on our blog, on our Three Dads Walking website. But, this is my little... I was so proud of her. Yeah. I used to take her gigging. She was doing bars and things in Sale, Manchester, Wilmslow, and I was so proud of her. Yeah. I was so absolutely proud of her. I had to get up and stand in a bar for hours without a drink, and while she sang. But it was okay. It was okay. That's what dads do.
Yeah.
But she had the world at her feet. So there's so many memories of her. And I'll be quite honest with you as well, both of you. Sometimes I do block those memories.
Right.
And I'll never look back at old videos of her, on holiday, pictures of her and her sister, because I know if I go back, it'll be too hard to go forward again.
I get that. Yeah. I get that.
But
No, listen, mate, honestly, again, I just like to see obviously on behalf of our listeners, because I know exactly what they're going to say. We do. I mean, we get reviews. People will text me. Sometimes I see people on the street. Obviously, I wear my t-shirt. That's me card, and they go, "Oh, you're that? Yeah, that's right. Yeah." And they listen to it, and I know. This is going to be, really, really up there with it. And it's been a great honour for us, both myself and Paul, and for our listeners, for you to come on and tell us your story. So just to close, obviously, if you could, please tell us more a little bit about how our listeners can access your project for those who have been through the same experience, as you with their children taking their lives.
Okay, we're sort of if you want to look at the Three Dads stuff, it's on our website, threedadswalking.uk. As for support and everything, we work very closely with a charity called PAPYRUS, Prevention of Young Suicide, that basically are there to prevent, they say under 35s taking their own lives, but as they run many courses: suicide prevention, suicide awareness, suicide intervention, but also they have something called Hopeline 247. There is a helpline that is open 24 hours, basically. It's manned by professionals. It's not just for young people who are struggling, who can ring it and get help and talk to some of the wonderful operators on the other end. It is also for concerned others. So this is the prevention side. So if you're a parent, a friend, a professional, anyone who knows someone who is struggling, really under 35, you can basically access that. For anyone who is bereaved, who has recently been bereaved, and sadly, we as three dads, we get contacted so much about recently bereaved parents. We aren't experts in this. We always try and help, but we always direct them to Papyrus as well, because part of Hopeline 247 as well, they have like a debriefing service. They will tell you best places to find support, through the absolute, despair that people are going through, because nothing seems easy. Everything is hard. You can go on their website as well, and there is a list of different organizations that you can get, advice from. So, but we aren't, the Three Dads Walking isn't a charity. Papyrus Prevention of Suicide is a charity that we support and raise all our funds for. We've raised nearly $1.5 million for them now,
Wow.
and we don't intend to stop. Yeah. But having said that, there's many other wonderful charities out there that we do support in our own way as well, because as well as our own walking, we also go and walk and support other people.
Yeah.
Because it's important that there is some kind of collaboration out there too.
100%. Collaboration is that, especially it's getting tougher and tougher and tougher in terms of funding, in terms of keeping these outlines going, which is it's beyond belief. But I mean, that's for another discussion. So
I mean, Justin, we can go on and on, but I mean, so basically our kids are the most precious things in our life. But this is what we do as the Three Dads. We want suicide prevention to be on the school's curriculum. But we believe a lot, obviously it has to happen in schools, so they're taught in a safe environment, age appropriately, etc. But I do believe every child should go through this, but I do believe to underpin this, there should be more emphasis on life skills to keep kids basically happy, healthy, know how to look after themselves, because there's no point in academic qualifications if you haven't got a happy, resilient young person who can thrive in life. And they will carry those skills into adult life, into parenthood, so that is where we are targeting everything. But I know I'm going on here. I know you're trying to close.
No, not at all.
Carry on, mate.
I will leave you something. On our walks, we speak to many people. Sadly, many people bereaved by suicide. But we also speak to people who have been in crisis themselves, and in many cases tried to take their own lives, but now are living lives they want to. And that doesn't mean that every day is easy for them, but when I walk with these people who've been through a lot, and some of them are still very young, so they are, they are someone's son or daughter, however, but they tell me they are happy now and want to be alive. And that is the hope. And that's why we do what we do.
Mike, it's been brilliant. Honestly, it's been brilliant. And I'm sure our readers and listeners, whatever, are gonna really, really be ecstatic about it, mate. I've been enthralled by it. Paul, what can we say, mate? Like we say, a lot to our attendees who come onto the podcast, how brave it is, how encouraging it is for them. For us, we learn stuff. People out there, it resonates, and this has been obviously right up there, mate. And we really, really appreciate it. It's been great, and thank you so much. Love to you and the other two lads, and long continue to do what we do. And obviously, if we can help you in any way, I'm sure we're gonna. But I'll jump out there and walk a few hundred yards with you one day. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's what it's about, Trevor. You don't have to come out and see us, but the case is you don't have to do a long walk.
That's it.
Even say hello and a few hundred yards and whatever. Yeah. But no, I thank you both. You Paul and Trevor. No, thank you very much. It's an amazing thing you're doing, and yeah, meet up
great,
again
mate.
one day, another time.
Mate, it was lovely to speak to you. It really was, and I can't get this vision of some lad flying through the doors into the next room.
Oh yeah.
And that is just, I mean, you know, as much as you can say that made me smile, and it's not something you expect from a conversation like this, but that's just, that's amazing, mate. It's amazing.
Great, mate. Love to you and the wife and the rest of the family. Thank you, mate.
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Care. Yeah, take care.
See you soon. Take care, mate.
Bye, mate.
Bye.
Bye.
What if technology was so advanced that as soon as you were born, health checks would define that your body would not fall into decline? What if technology found an abnormality that would eradicate the cause of probability that would massively be welcomed by society? What if parents, after becoming parents at a preconceived age, stayed the same? Their mind and bodies never changed. And when your kids reach the same age, the process starts again. What if? What if the dream came true and your sons and daughters would always be alive with you? What if? What if this is all a dream and no one ever cries? No one is ever in mourning because no one ever died.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the exclusive club that Dads Don't Want to Belong to podcast, hosted by Trevor Dwyer Lynch, produced by Paul Ludden, and proudly supported by the Manx Spirit Charity. Please subscribe to our podcast, and if you can leave us a review, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.